So that means either Labour knew that she'd lied, or they didn't even bother doing their own checks. And for me, to have a Chancellor of the Exchequer who is a liar, who says she is an economist and is not, is utterly unacceptable to me. I will never view this woman as capable of doing her job. And as she's just shown from the budget, she clearly isn't.
Wow, I'm getting wound up now because at number four, another one that the mainstream media just decided they were not going to go there with. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, exposed for having a fake life. But let's just not talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Let's look at the CV. It's very, very clear. She states on her LinkedIn that she was working as an economist at HBOS. But Guido reports this is not true. Guido can reveal that Reeves worked in a mundane support department of the bank, according to multiple former colleagues. Within the Halifax HBOS complaints team, there was a small support unit which managed administration processes, IT matters, and small projects and planning. It was a team of 3 people, far from the economics department. Can you believe this? And it gets worse, folks. It gets worse. Because Guido says Reeves has a tendency to be selective about the truth when it comes to her CV. Her chess champion myth is also a falsehood. Now, Guido reached out to the Reeves team. They did not deny she did not work as an economist for the bank, but instead said she covered various areas using her economist background.
Now, Bernie, again, this shows the complete corrupt nature of the elite class, the establishment, the mainstream media, because if this had been a Conservative Chancellor, trust me, they would not still be in their job, because the story would have led the mainstream media news every single day for weeks, just like Boris Johnson and Partygate. But when it's Rachel Reeves, oh, don't worry about the fact that she's basically made up a whole life, because there was a whole load more, Bernie, about her behaviour at HBOS, which we won't go into now. But this one infuriates me.
Yeah, it's outrageous. She should have lost her job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hypocritical of the media and Labour. So Labour were the ones that jumped all over reform in the last election for not having vetted their candidates well enough. Well, let me tell you now, big organisations vet their candidates to the point where they get credit score agencies like Experian to troll through CVs and find the lies. So that means either Labour knew that she'd lied, or they didn't even bother doing their own checks. And for me, to have a Chancellor of the Exchequer who is a liar, who says she is an economist and is not, is utterly unacceptable to me. I will never view this woman as capable of doing her job. And as she's just shown from the budget, she clearly isn't.
No, very, very true. But I mean, Dr. Renee, Slippery Starmer appointed a literal fraudster to the cabinet in Louise Haigh, the former Transport Secretary, who only lost her job once that story was revealed. So he doesn't seem to have any problems with surrounding himself by fraudulent women.
Well, he doesn't have a problem with that, but he also, this is the double standards, isn't it? So, you know, people probably would give him a little bit of slack if he hadn't stood on the steps of Downing Street and said, we will serve you, the government of service, no more sleaze. And actually, all we've had from day one is sleaze story after sleaze story. And then we've got a Chancellor who is destroying the lives of small businesses, our farmers, and the economy. There's no growth anymore, on the basis that she is an economist from a lie on a CV. I mean, you couldn't make this up, and you would give him some slack if he wasn't so pious. And this is the typical, look over here, please, don't look at us.
At number 6, Labour turns on farmers but makes an enemy of Jeremy Clarkson, who gives an impassioned address at Westminster.
How many people here, if you'd raise your hands, are from a family farm? I want to see, right. I hope you can see that. I hope we've got our cameras from the show up high to see. That's a lot of hands. Now, keep them up, and I want you to lower them if You think, and you've had time to work this out, you think you're going to be unaffected by the changes to APR and BPR. Put your hands down if you're going to be unaffected. Thank you. My case rests. I want Newsnight to see that. She was trotting out. Nobody's affected. Rachel Reeves says so. Since when was the BBC the mouthpiece of this infernal government? I've got to get the brakes on. The trouble is I'm off my tits on codeine and paracetamol up here. I don't know what I'm saying. But I do want to finish, if I may, with a message to the government. I do. Not a shouty one, it's this. For the sake of everybody here, and for all the farmers who are stuck at home today, paralysed by a fog of despair over what's been foisted upon them, I beg of the government to be big, to accept that this was rushed through, it wasn't thought out, and it's a mistake.
But Bernie Spofforth, yes, inspiration there from Jeremy Clarkson, but 2024 was the year that this despicable Labour government declared war on small farms, right?
Yeah, I think there are many strands to this argument, and it is a very complex and much broader subject, actually, what's happening with farming and agriculture and produce all over the world. But with regard to what Labour has done, you know, most of those people do not come outside of their Westminster bubble. They might spend a little bit of time in their constituency, but they're not on the ground with farmers. And if you look at Britain, and they call us the populists, right? We're not populists, we're the majority. We love our farming. It's part of our heritage and our background. And of course, all things old must go. In the new world, it's a new type of farming, right? So they don't really care about how farming works in the UK, as long as the corporations can consolidate and they can get their tax from that. And I'll give you a complete example as to why I know they are utterly clueless. They said that no farm under £3 million in value would pay tax. Well, if your farm is worth under £3 million in value, then you have no animals on it. All they've done is they've protected the posh London set with their pony paddock. That's what they've done, is in the areas where houses are quite expensive and people are well off and they've got a little bit, they've got a couple of acres or they've got 5 acres with a pony on, yippee, they won't have to pay tax.
Dr. Renee, how did you feel about Labour's declaration of war on the farmers?
So I am incensed for the farmers over this, and I think it shows a complete lack of understanding from most people, including actually James O'Brien's gone quite hard on this too. He doesn't understand it at all. What people don't understand is the difference between me selling my house and when I die and my children having to pay taxes. They don't live in my house. Farmers live in their farms. They live in the houses on them. So if they have to sell off bits of their farm, it actually affects their livelihood because they have to stay there and raise the money in a different way, not just the proceeds from selling the house. So that's the number one difference. But I actually think, as Bernie says, this is much bigger and deeper and people are not getting it. We've seen this week about the bovar and feeding cows stuff to stop them bottom burping. We're seeing the push now from the UN that people should cut their meat reduction by 50%. This is just all playing into the net zero without doing it overtly and saying to farmers, you can't have so many cows, you can't have so many acres of land because we need to cut meat production. So subliminally, people are being coerced into the route of getting rid of meat in their diets without it being said. And this farming tax is just another part of it.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And if you look in the UK, we have 209,000 farmsteads. Only 17% of the land is owned by corporations and conglomerates, meaning the rest is owned by farmers and small-scale farmers. And bit by bit by bit by bit, they're being bought and consolidated because large operations can scale up their technology far faster and be more efficient at producing this new technologically created food. And that is a massive part of the pressures that farmers are going to face, because they can't afford to increase the technology on their farms. They just are what they are.
And number 5, on the worst of 2024, the downfall of Huw Edwards.
Breaking news here on the BBC. Within the past few minutes, former BBC News presenter Huw Edwards has pleaded guilty at Westminster Magistrates Court to 3 counts of making indecent images of children. He arrived just under an hour ago. The offences took place between 2020 and 2022. They relate to 37 images that were shared on a WhatsApp chat, according to the Metropolitan Police. So in the past few minutes, the broadcaster, former BBC presenter Huw Edwards, has pleaded guilty at Westminster Magistrates Court to 3 counts of making indecent images of children.
And Dr. Renee, I still think that people have not realised how astonishing a moment like that is. The BBC, the British Bashing Corporation, announcing on their air that the man who they allowed to reveal the death of the Queen, the late Queen Elizabeth II, to the world is a paedophile.
Yes. And nobody's actually even using that word, are they?
Nope.
These were images of children, and it doesn't matter if those children were 16 or 6, they're children and they're being abused by an older man. And this just comes back to, doesn't it, the constant defenseless children in our society that nobody appears to want to stand up for. We can attack the likes of Greg Wallace for saying some fruity jokes, but not defend our children against paedophiles like Huw Edwards and the many, many others that walk free day after day in this country. When is someone going to actually call out Huw Edwards and the likes of him, because there are many of them and many of them are in our industry, call them out for what they are and shun them?
Bernie?
I think that we're in a situation now where something that the majority of people consider absolutely abhorrent is almost being delivered as an acceptance of the abnormal. And I have a massive problem with that. And we're seeing that through our schools. We're seeing it through all the support Huw Edwards was given at the time. Don't forget, most people were like, oh, well, it was only a 17-year-old. Oh, well, we don't think he meant it. Even to sentencing guidelines, because sentencing guidelines were changed by Keir Starmer to say that paedophiles, people caught with images, shouldn't go to prison for their first offence. Well, I'm sorry, but every single child in those photographs was a victim of abuse. And if you view them, you should go to prison. That's it. But we're accepting it, aren't we? This abnormal behaviour. We're teaching about very young sexual experiences in our schools, and children now, how do they know what's normal and what's abnormal? How do they?
And Bernie, I think it is really just worth watching, given you mentioned it, some of the support that Huw Edwards received from the media class, the elite class, who are so desperate to cancel people like Lawrence Fox and myself for laughing at the fact that the Fox said he didn't want to shag someone. And yet, look at what John Sopel had to say about Huw Edwards. But first, if you want to look sharp for all of these New Year gatherings, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Trust me, this is an incredible product guiding you to smooth, irritation-free shaving. So let me dive into the goods now. The Chairman Pro is armed with not one but two interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. Think of them as your grooming superheroes. The skin-safe 4-blade foil for when you want that baby's bottom smooth, and the skin-safe supple trimmer for when you want to keep some stubble but clean it up a bit. Both keep you looking sharp while minimising razor burn and irritation, because no one wants to show up to a New Year's party, right? Looking like you're unshaven. But wait, there's more. The Chairman Pro has FlexJust technology, which is basically like the holiday miracle of slaving. The blades and pivoting head adjust to every curve of your face and is gentle on the neck area too. So go ahead, kiss that awkward jawline patch goodbye. And if you want even more precision, on the right side of the bracket, there's a precision lock. So when you lock it, the blade head sits firm so you can achieve a more precise shave. I use it myself and I find it very, very handy. Here's something, by the way, that will make your grooming easier too. The Chairman Pro completely waterproof, so you can use it in the shower. And the waterproof feature doesn't just make shaving easier, it also simplifies cleanup too. Just a quick rinse under the sink and you're all set. The Chairman Pro isn't just for daily shaves either. It's powerful enough to tackle up to 5-day growth, making it perfect whether you're shaving every day or just tidying up after a few days. And with up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, you'll have plenty of juice to go. It even has a travel lock to help make sure it doesn't accidentally turn on in your bag, and an LED spotlight. I find this really helpful actually, because it means that you can see every detail. Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. It has everything you need to keep your face looking and feeling its best, all in one box. So head on over to www.manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide. I'm one of them who trust Manscaped. Just use the code Outspoken when you check out. It's incredible. You get free shipping and a mega 20% discount. So that's manscaped.com using the coupon code Outspoken. But now, back to the show.
We now know there was no illegality. So what are you left with? Someone's private life has come under scrutiny, who is now unwell. I think it would be a crying shame if this is the last we see of Huw Edwards on television, when the allegations have turned out to be not that much. And I think all his friends will just be wishing him well at this stage, because Huw commands huge respect in this industry.
There you go.
See, they do it for the great and the good, but they don't do it for the down and the out, right? So the guy who's the grocer that makes distasteful jokes that, you know, women like me would probably tell him to shut up, or I might go and say, he's a creep. And we probably wouldn't shut up about it. And I know lots of women have. But he is destroyed. Do they want him to kill himself for telling bad jokes and being a bit of a lech? Is that what they want him to do? Because they haven't done it with people like Jimmy Savile. They didn't do it with Huw Edwards, did they? They just all supported him and then shut up. No one meant it again.
But Greg Wallace, remember, doesn't fit there who they support.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And they didn't do it. These lefty lovies were not outraged by the Rochdale grooming gangs.
Greg Wallace has had more coverage than the grooming gangs scandal ever did on the mainstream media. Let that sink in.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.